Yep, so recording should have come through now. Wendy, are you okay to continue to admit people in, please?
Yeah, will do.
Cool, thank you. Hopefully full screens come up on there now, Paul.
Perfect. Thank you, Fraser. So welcome everyone to this, the second Housing Repairs online show and share. Next slide, please, Fraser. Before I tell you what we're going to cover today, just to remind everyone why we do these show and shares, it provides an opportunity for the team to celebrate what we've achieved in the current sprint, demo working software that's been built, and share information on progress made so far. But most importantly, it's for you, our collaborators and supporters, to have the opportunity to give feedback and ask questions, and there'll be hopefully time at the end for you to do that. Next slide, please, Fraser. So what are we going to cover today? In a moment, I'll remind you of who is in our core team. Fraser will then talk about our vision and how to engage with the project, and also the process for repair identification. I'll then hand over to Aziz Ambra, our UX designer, who will talk about user research, our approach and challenges. And then our software engineers will talk about the best practice that they've been implementing. I'll then give an update on progress made in the current sprint and our focus for the next, before finally handing back to Fraser, who will talk about the challenges you face. And then you'll have the opportunity to ask us any questions that you may have. Next slide, please. So who is in the core team? We have Fraser Trickett from Lincoln Council, who's our product owner, myself, Paul Clemson, delivery manager from Maytech, Fernando Aquila from Lambeth Council, Bhavesh Patel, lead engineer from Maytech, Jayad Amatajo from Southwark Council, Wendy Banks, business analyst from Lincoln Council, Theon Johnson, user researcher from Maytech, Sam Villas from Local Digital, part of DLUHC, El Villamarte, senior engineer at Maytech, Jem Bowen, representing the Thistle Group, Mesa Canoni, software engineer from Maytech, and finally Aziz Ambra, our UX designer from Maytech. Next slide, please. Have we gone one? Okay, Fraser, sorry.
No, that's okay. Hopefully I'm not breaking up on there. So just wanted to run through what our kind of objective is and what we're aiming for as this project. And that is ultimately to create a reusable report at a repair online service, but most importantly, one that's designed around our users' needs, rather than traditionally what our kind of back-end system needs are. So really that's the kind of defining difference between what we're trying to do here, and that what we create at the end of this can be adopted and used by other authorities across the UK. If you want to find out more about kind of how we started with this project, then it'd be great if you can engage with us. And you can do that through our website, and on there we've got a blog. So you can go back, watch previous show and shares that we've done on there, but it also goes into some detail about why we're embarking on this as a project and where this has come from. So yeah, please take the time out to have a look at those. And our hashtag is repairs online, so LinkedIn, Twitter, things like that. If you do our search on there, you'll be able to find out previous posts as well. So one of the things that we've really focused on during this last sprint is understanding how we can start to define and identify repairs. On our original prototype, we had a very linear process in here that focused just on damp and mold, but obviously that wouldn't be really usable with just those elements as a live product. So what we've had to do is expand that out to the other rooms in the properties and the other types of repairs that we want customers to be able to report through this process. So to do that, we've gone and looked at our data and identified what our top repairs are. Originally we focused on the top 50 on there, but that's somewhat expanded as we've started to look through it. And we've tried to create a 3-tier selection process, and that focuses around the room first, a broad description of the issue, and then that takes us down to the detail of this is the type of repair I'm reporting. What we also try to do is strip away that traditional SOR terminology or even any indication that is linked to an SOR behind the scenes, so that it's nice and usable for the customers. And there are clear exit points for if we know something is an emergency that we want customers to be able to ring us as part of that journey as well. I'll hand over to yourself, Az.
Thank you, Fraser. Right, so the user research, the overarching sort of aim of it is to identify and prioritize any challenges that customers face at the moment using our system, and help sort of inform and drive design decisions. And so to do that, Theon, our researcher, is going to have face-to-face conversations with the various users across different sort of audiences to find out, what the problems are at the moment, what the pain points are, and to also maybe start thinking about what the users think better solutions are. And so we will be speaking, at the moment, the plan is to speak to up to 10 users over today and tomorrow. And overall, we'll probably conduct at least two rounds of research, starting from, I think, in a couple of weeks' time. And sorry, yeah, next slide, please. So there have been some challenges, but it's nothing unusual, I'd say, for research, because it can be difficult to recruit participants sometimes. And so we've sent out a number of sort of emails and reached out across councils, local authorities, local organizations, social media, across a wide range of channels. And so far we've got a small sort of sample to conduct research with. And also we were planning to use the GDS Empathy Lab, which helps users identify the needs for users with any sort of visual or hearing disabilities or any kind of challenges. And but at the moment it's closed due to COVID, and so hopefully at some point it might be available, but that's another option for us. And yeah, that's all about research. Any questions? No? Cool.
So I'm going to talk to you about CI/CD. We threw out this term a bit in our last show and tell, and we just want to kind of let everyone know what it is. So CI stands for continuous integration, which means running automated tests. These tests are triggered via whenever a change is made in our GitHub via a pull request. These changes are triggered via pull requests, and running these tests ensures that new changes don't break the present functionality. So, for example, there on the right, you can see where I was editing a page and I accidentally took out some helper text. And when I made the pull request, the test alerted me to that, so I was able to kind of go back and put those in for us to ensure like a smooth transition as we develop further. The CD part of CI/CD is continuous deployment, which allows us to publish changes, and make the service available to users. Now, this is important so that everything is kind of deployed in a timely manner and in the same way, so no one's changes kind of break the service in an unexpected manner. And it's important to get these in really quickly, which will help us when we go live with the service to kind of make a smooth transition from an actively developed app to one that's live and available for the users. I'm going to pass on to Bhavesh to talk more about what we've been doing on the development side.
Next slide, please, Fraser.
Bhavesh, you're muted.
Thank you. So I'm going to be talking about HACT, who they are, what they do, why, and how. So they are the Housing Association Charitable Trust, which partners with organizations across the social housing sector to drive value for residents and their communities. They do this through insight-led products and services, which encourages collaboration and fosters innovation. The standard was created in 2018, and there have been 4 versions so far. and it is developed and supported by more than 70 housing associations and software companies. It is incorporated and used by 180 housing associations, implementing them into their business practices. The data standards allow adoption of the data standards, improve efficiencies between both the individual housing associations and as well across the entire sector. And it allows data to be shared seamlessly and quickly without the need for reinvention. Now, how does this relate to the Housing Repairs Online project, which we've undertaken now? The Department of Levelling Up and Housing and Communities, formerly known as MHCLG, encourages the use of the standards to foster relationships with HACT since the discovery phase. And how we're doing this is to create data transfer objects, referred to as DTOs, which are generated by the data standard published by HACT. And these are easily updatable, so if there was a new version of the standard, the data transfer objects could easily be updated to reflect any changes made. The standard allows standardized communication between components within our system, which also accelerates integration with third-party systems such as Northgate, Civica Universal Housing, and DRS, which provided that they adhere to the standard already. And it also means that we have reusability of our components, so that they might not be just locked into just Housing Repairs Online. They might allow additional integrations with other systems that could be created in the future. That's it from me.
Thanks, Vivek. In terms of progress made in the current sprint, we've continued to refine the prototype, making changes to both design and copy to improve the user experience. We've built various repositories needed to build code and pipelines to build, test and deploy that code. We've added validation to pages, and what that means is that a user has to make a selection on a page before they can progress to the next page. And as you've heard, we've conducted our first round of face-to-face user research in Lincoln. Next slide, please. So what will be our focus for our next sprint? Well, we'll continue to build new pages for the MVP. For example, we'll be creating pages which will allow a user to add their postcode and property address. We'll continue to integrate with Universal Housing, writing scripts in C# and SQL to extract information. We'll deepen our understanding of DRS through 2 half-day workshops with the vendor. We'll analyse the resident feedback from today's user research sessions, and then based on that, we'll iterate our prototype. Over to you, Fraser.
Cheers, Paul. So yeah, the challenges that we've faced over this sprint and partly on the last one as well is our knowledge of the DRS system and, more importantly, the APIs. So we were quite fortunate in that we were able to get our API and web services spun up quite quickly and a connection to that. However, the documentation that we have that surrounds how these are used has still left us with some questions. And in the team, we haven't got that deep understanding of how DRS actually operates. And there's such a wide variety of calls that can be made and parameters within the DRS calls. Because the system is so configurable, what we've found is that we really need some of their time in terms of being able to understand what we should be using each call for. So we've reached out to DRS, and as Paul just mentioned, we've got those days booked in, but it has been something that has delayed this round of the project. Although we've been able to get those calls actually initiated, we're not really fully understanding how and when they should be called at this moment in time. And also we've found that, it's certainly in Lincoln's case, our integration to Universal is causing us some issues. We're not on necessarily the latest version of that. We don't have web services that are available to call. It's not going to be an issue that's unique to Lincoln. So again, remembering this is about making a product that's adoptable and reusable. It's all great learning for that, but it's just something that has slowed down this phase of the project. But with every confidence that we'll get there with these. Okay. And with that, it's over to everybody else. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so you can either unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can actually put it in the chat channel. So feel free to ask us any question that you may have.
Go for it,
Yeah.
Jim.
Hiya. Yeah, just wondering, the integration to Universal,
Mhm.
when we were talking earlier, we were talking about primarily integration with the scheduling system, with DRS. What will the integration to Universal be doing? Is that tenancy name validation?
There's two elements to it, to be honest, Jem. The first one is property information back, so that it's going to be our source for what is a valid property. So as we know, we're excluding communal and leaseholders in this first phase. So it's going to kind of pre-filter that information out so that somebody can't select one of those properties. In addition to that, one of the things that we found when talking with the DRS team and what's expected as part of that integration is that it does require a job number. So we need to understand about how to pre-create that somewhere so that that link remains between the two systems. Otherwise, we'll be creating jobs in DRS that don't have that complete circle of audit trail, I guess, between those systems. And that's a great example of one of those things that we've kind of learned as we've been going through this and those requirements of those web service calls.
And to what extent do you think that'll complicate the reusability moving forward?
Good question. Without a doubt, it adds a level of complexity in there. I would say that for other suppliers and newer versions of Universal, it's less of an issue because the web services exist. So I think if we can overcome this issue in Lincoln and get the understanding of what that means for us, then hopefully it'll open up those doors and make those easier. The alternative, of course, and the thing that we don't really know and why we want to engage with the consultancy team is that if there is an alternative to that, in that originally we had that feeling that that would be possible to just talk to the scheduling software, but it's increasingly looking like that isn't actually possible. But however, we're still exploring that to see if that is the case. Thanks, Jim.
Okay. Any further questions from anyone? You can put them in the chat if you wish, or you can ask them directly to the team. No more questions.
Amy.
I apologise. There's some people in the garden, so if it's noisy. We was just wondering, we are looking at potentially upgrading to a different housing system. Are we looking at it potentially being able to cross over from UH into other housing systems as well?
Yeah, ultimately that will be that objective, Amy. So that we need this to be kind of workable and reusable with a multitude of platforms. Obviously, I'm aware of the ones that we're looking at from Lincoln's perspective, but with the timescales of what that is, I'm trying to not focus on that right now, because we'll never get there otherwise. So if we can set the parameters in place for this, have this as a defined reusable product that is supported by DLUC, MHCLG, whatever we're calling them today, that will give us that information to add into the specification for the procurement of a new product. Because one of the objectives that we're really trying to push on from this is that we get vendors to kind of be part of this, and kind of force their hand in helping to create that uniformity so that it makes it easier for people to kind of chop and change between suppliers.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Any more for any more?
No more questions?
If anybody does think of anything, it'll be on our blog site. There's a contact page on there. Ultimately, just pings an email through to me, but I'll forward that on to whoever can best answer that. So yeah, please feel free to share this and the output of it with colleagues and other authorities, get them involved. That'd be great.
Yeah. Thanks for attending, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Cheers, everybody.
See
you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.